all over the side.
I just was reading even 10% of these people.
You know how to read it?
Yeah, I do. I mean, it's so small. I had to find the words.
Actually, I'm glad you told me that.
You keep those speeches down to like 2 minutes.
Yeah, no, I have, we did. Ready?
If even 10% of these people speak, we're going to be here all day.
Yeah, I know.
To make sure that, I mean, when you get like 3 people saying the same thing.
Yeah, right. That's the kind of one. Right. Walking each side.
We'll live like the 90s.
Daryl, you ready? You guys ready? You guys ready?
Yeah, right.
Good. I asked to have everybody take a seat, but I think we're short of a few. But we are going to ask everyone to give us their attention now. This is the Sylvania Township Board of Zoning Appeals regular meeting. And I'd like to call it to order and ask Val, Secretary, for roll call, please.
Mr. Rowland?
Here.
Mr. Schlocker?
Here.
Mr. Halper?
Here.
Mr. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Hayes?
Here. Okay. Next, I'll ask if we have a motion to approve the minutes from our September 14th meeting.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Mr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Rowland?
Yes.
Mr. Schlocker?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Abstain. Okay. We'll move on to old business. I don't see any on the agenda. Does anybody have any old business? No. Now we're going to move on to new business. And the first case, before we do the first case, I'm going to ask all of you, if I could have your attention, if you have any thought that you might be giving testimony today. I'd rather have you go on the side of, well, maybe, than having to go and do one person at a time. So if you think you might testify today, please raise your right hand. Okay? Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth to the best of your knowledge? I can see a yes. Thank you. Okay. The first new business, and I don't think this is why everyone's here, so I think our first two cases, we'll let the testimony go as it rolls out, and we'll deal with the case I think most of you are here for when we get to it. Our first new business is exception request for a temporary use to permit the use of an existing pole sign pending the acquisition of the adjacent retail center by the property owner for property located at 6760 West Central Avenue. Daryl, can we please get the staff report?
Yes. The subject property consists of a lot formerly occupied by a Shell gas station / convenience store. The property was recently purchased by the applicant and the gas station demolished and replaced with a parking lot. The lot is bounded on the north and east by the Regency Plaza Retail Strip Mall at 6710 Central Avenue, which the applicant intends to soon purchase. There currently exists on the subject property a pole sign from the former Shell station that the applicant wishes to use for advertisement of one of the tenants of the strip mall. This pole sign meets all the current requirements of Section 3107B of the Sylvania Township Zoning Resolution regarding a pole sign on a commercial property. The reason for this exception request arises from the applicant's desire to use the sign to advertise a business located elsewhere than on the premises on which the sign is located. Off-premise signs are permitted as indicated in Section 3109. However, they fall under more intense regulations, particularly regarding height and maximum allowed sign face. The current sign does not meet these regulations for an off-premise sign. As the applicant intends to acquire the adjoining strip mall, the two parcels could easily be combined after the sale is complete. The pole sign would then be on the same premises as the business it would advertise, However, the applicant wishes to utilize this sign prior to purchase and thus is requesting the exception for a temporary use. Section 2405G, temporary structure and use states, quote, "The board may permit the temporary use of a structure or premise in any district for a purpose or use that does not conform to the regulations prescribed elsewhere in this resolution for the district in which it is located, provided that such use be of a temporary nature and does not involve the erection of a substantial structure. A zoning certificate for such use shall be granted in the form of a temporary and revocable certificate for not more than a 12-month period. Should the board approve this request, the applicant will have until the expiration of the temporary use to either combine the two parcels or remove the existing pole sign. While the maximum time allowed for the temporary use is 12 months, the board may grant approval with a lesser time period if it sees fit. Sylvania Township zoning staff recommends approval of the requested exception for a temporary use. There currently exists no visible demarcation between the two parcels. This transparency, together with the common usage of these two parcels, gives support to the perception that these two parcels are already one. Staff finds that approval of the temporary use poses no adverse effect on the surrounding properties and is compatible with the intent of the Sylvania Township zoning resolution.
Thank you. Any questions yet from the board? If not, I'm going to ask if there's anybody here to speak on behalf of this matter. Come on up to the podium, please, and tell us your name and sign in.
Sure, Reed Hopman. I'm with Shoemaker Loop on behalf of the applicant, agent for the applicant. And I'm here to essentially answer any questions. I appreciate the summary. I think that's accurate. We are under contract. My client is to purchase the remainder of the center, in which case, upon consummation of that acquisition, the two lots would be combined. The sign would then be in compliance with the code. The 12-month period for the temporary use is more than sufficient. We are anticipating closing the first quarter of next year at the latest, and so I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Do you plan on replacing the sign until the property is all bought?
Yeah, the purpose of this request is for us, if permitted, to move forward with the new sign. If for some reason the acquisition did not go through, we would be forced to remove that then.
Okay. And so when do you anticipate, when do you anticipate putting the sign in if approved today?
I think my client's ready to move forward once the permission's granted.
Are you going to combine it as one parcel?
We are.
Okay, so then you'll have more than one pylon, though, versus one pylon per parcel.
Given the frontage on Central, that's allowed.
Okay, actually, that was my
They
question.
also have frontage along McCord, so the parcel, if it's joined as one, would have more than enough road
Okay.
frontage for more than one sign.
Okay, thanks for answering. Any other questions, comments? Okay, do I hear a motion? I'm sorry, does anyone else want to speak on behalf of this matter? Okay, now I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion for the exception request for a temporary use to permit the use of an existing pole sign pending the acquisition of an adjacent retail center by the property owner for the property located at 6760 West Central Avenue, parcel number 78-32537. And that is for 12 months as well.
Second.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Bowman?
Yes.
Mr. Schweitzer?
Yes.
Mr. Hubbard?
Yes.
Mr. Hayes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Sure. Okay, we'll move on to the next one. The next new business is an amendment request to a condition of a conditional use permit to alter the required height of screening for the property located at 5340 Centennial Road. Can we have the staff report, please?
Yes. On September 8, 2008, the Sylvania Township Board of Zoning Appeals unanimously approved with conditions a request for a conditional use to operate a paintball commercial recreational facility on the subject property. The property had previously been used as an indoor-outdoor tennis facility, and the applicant wished to convert two of the outdoor tennis courts to activity areas for paintball games. Condition number 3 of the conditions of approval stated, quote, that adequate screening be provided for all outdoor activities capable of keeping all paintball pellets within the prescribed activity areas, unquote. On May 4th, 2009, an amendment to the existing conditional use was approved with conditions. Condition number 2 of that amendment read, quote, that the required height of the screening provided for the outdoor gaming areas be set at a minimum height of 19 feet, nor to exceed 21 feet in height, unquote. The catalyst for the current request stems from a complaint filed with the zoning department from the developer of the adjoining residential subdivision to the east of the subject property. The screening that had been in place behind the paintball courts per the conditions of the conditional use had been damaged in the elements and had been taken down by the applicant. This allowed errant paintball pellets to land on the complainant's development. The manager of the zoning department issued a notice of zoning violation to the applicant who had been exploring other options of screening. The applicant wishes to again amend the conditional use in order to place different screening above and behind the outdoor paintball courts. Over the northernmost court, the applicant plans to install horizontal screening over the court. This screening would attach to the top of the perimeter fencing and would extend across the court, acting as a screened roof versus a screened wall as prescribed in the second condition of the approved amended conditional use. It would not be 19 to 21 feet tall, but would enclose the paintball court, preventing stray paintball pellets from landing onto the adjoining properties. On the southern court, there exist two-story facades exceeding the height of the surrounding fence, preventing the type of screening used on the northern court. The applicant plans to install angled screening at the rear of the court, angled upward toward the building on the subject property. This would be similar in design to a large batting cage open toward the subject property, but preventing paintball pellets from reaching the neighboring properties to the east. Sylvania Township staff recommends approval with condition of the requested amendment to the conditional use. Condition number 3 of the original approved conditional use stating that adequate screening be provided for all outdoor activities capable of keeping all paintball pellets within the prescribed activity areas is sufficient enough to protect the adjoining properties while still allowing the applicant latitude in screening options. Staff recommends that condition number 2 of the amended conditional use, requiring the height of the screening to be a minimum of 19 feet but not to exceed 21 feet, be repealed. Staff recommends that the board place as a condition of approval that screening as described in the above condition number 3 be in place within 30 days of approval of this amendment.
Okay. Can I ask real quick, do you have any idea how long it's been down? I know that you...
I believe the applicant said about a year.
Okay. Any questions so far? Okay, can I ask if there's anybody here to speak on behalf of this matter?
Good afternoon. Brian Kalis on behalf of Warzone Paint Games.
Okay.
As an update, first of all, the fencing is up. The fencing is up at the height that was originally required. We have been working with Mr. Grouse in trying to find a viable solution to this. It's a matter of location and where things are. This isn't anything that's going to be an ongoing issue, we don't believe. What we've done is, first of all, we've moved one game away from the property line. That's not going to be an issue anymore. The other thing we were trying to do, which is why we initially submitted the original amendment request, we're going to try and fence over the part of the paintball field.
Can I ask everybody please to turn your phones off? I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
We're going to try to fence over the part of the paintball field that would be relevant to the development that's behind my client's property. That wasn't proving viable. Just the weight of the net, the number of cables we would need across, safety to attach cables into the rock, all this other stuff. That was part of the reason for the delay, was researching and doing this. They actually put some up that it didn't work. So then we've now gone back to the original permit requirement of the 19 to 21 feet. We've put up extension poles off the original 10-foot tennis court fencing. The poles are up, the net are up, the net is up to, the pole is actually 21 feet, the net is up to 20 feet. The netting is up with the exception of one middle section that isn't where the paintball games are played. I believe Mr. Grouse was out there today, saw some of it. So not to confuse things further, I guess we can either go forward with the current amendment, because we believe the fencing if you see those posts right there, the top of those posts, those are the extension posts that now go up to 21 feet. You pull up that black fencing, there's part of it going up. The fencing is now at the original requirement, which was 19 to 21 feet. Also, what we did is my client bought some new fencing, which is a little lighter weight. It's a little wider groove. It allows more air to flow through, so hopefully we won't. We had a problem with the original fencing. It kept falling down, got dragged down, that kind of thing. So we think we have the best solution overall, both in terms of cost to my client, but in terms of protecting the playing area and keeping paintballs in. It, however, is not currently the amendment that is proposed today. So we can, and I was talking to Mr. Grouse about this, I don't know if the proper course would have been to withdraw the request for the amendment and just satisfy the original conditions of the special use permit, or the amendment, new language just states screening to prevent paintballs. We can go with that as well. And that screening is in place as of today. Like I said, I believe Mr. Grouse was out there and observed it.
I was out late this morning when I took these photos.
Okay. Any questions so far?
How far do those paintballs shoot?
There's quite a few factors. I actually have one of my clients here who could testify better to that. I don't know, but what you're looking at is a playing surface where most of the time you are shooting more at a horizontal than an upward trajectory. There is a playing surface, and I don't know if Mr. Grouse has a picture of it, where there are two-story structures. So you would be up higher, you would be a little more elevated, which is the reason we went to the 20-foot fencing. The 10-foot fencing would grab all ground play, if you will. I think it's the elevated ground play that gets it above the 10-foot, which is why we went to the 20-foot. To be perfectly honest, that should be enough to grab every errant paintball out there. Could someone shoot one over, standing right next to me, try and pop one up over intentionally? Probably. I don't know how we can prevent against that. But in terms of distance to be shot, we walked the area out there. I don't know that one could reach where condos are currently in place. What is directly behind us are two vacant lots. Then there's condos across a smaller street. There is one going in that the foundation is in that is still offset from the fields. It's not directly behind the playing field. So in answer to your question, I don't know the exact distance, but it's not even directly adjacent to where these playing fields are.
I would imagine that probably we're getting some complaints from the adjacent property owners about these paintballs hitting their houses.
I'm not aware of any complaints. In fact, my clients have talked to several, I don't know how many frankly, of the neighboring property owners that use their facility. We've also made regular contact with Sylvania Township Police and City of Sylvania Police just for calls, nuisance calls, to see if anybody's called to say, I was struck by a paintball, my house was struck by a paintball. We've not received any letters from insurance companies, from property owners seeking reimbursement for damages. The only complaint we're aware of is the current one filed by the current, I believe it's McCarthy Builders, I'm not exactly sure who filed it, but that is the only complaint we are aware of. That's the only complaint that's ever been brought to our attention. Like I said, we've actually had neighboring property owners paying paintball at the facility. So not aware of anything, and we've checked with both Sylvania Township and City of Sylvania Police for any reports.
Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Hayes?
Okay, originally, how high was that fence?
The original fence is 10 feet. That's the tennis court fence. And I'm saying tennis courts just to give everybody an idea of what we're talking about. The tennis courts are no longer there.
21 feet?
Right.
It's 12 feet? I'm sorry, it's 12 feet. That's the original fencing for the courts that were originally there. In conjunction with the conditional use permit to allow the paintball courts there, the requirement was 19 to 21 feet. That's the original language. We put up that fence, the wind ripped it around, tore it down. We've now put up a different pole and a different fence to make it more secure. We are back to the original requirement of the original conditional use permit. We are at 20 feet. In the interim, we tried to do more of a canvas over the one area to give it a roof, if you will. That's absolutely not workable under these circumstances, just with weight and all kinds of other reasons. So we're back to being in compliance with the original conditions of the conditional use permit.
And how long did that take?
I wanted to hear from him.
Start to finish, I don't know that. We've been in compliance since the September date in our request for an amendment. And
Why are you here then?
Yeah,
I mean, if you've gone back to the original, and that's all around the
you should have
perimeter?
pulled it.
well, I asked that same question, and it was deemed, I believe, by counsel for the township that we still come tonight. I suggested we take it off the agenda as we thought we would be in compliance by today's meeting at the latest. And it was told to me that it would be best to leave it on the agenda and still have this opportunity to be.
Okay, so at least what we would get on the record is you're not asking for a variance, you're going to comply with the original amendment.
That's exactly right. I would like to strike everything that has happened and be here today to report that we are in compliance with the original requirements of the conditional use permit.
Okay?
All right, so do we,
Hang on, let me see, does anyone else want to talk on this matter? Please? Go
Can I
ahead.
ask one more question?
Oh, yeah, sure.
What are the typical hours of operation?
If I can turn to my client, Jason,
We run up until 9.
until 9 p.m.
And that's Monday through Friday, weekends only?
For paintball, it's typically Saturday and Sunday, and outside of that is an occasional reservation. But typically, I mean, we've had a couple of events in the last 7 years that have run past 9 p.m., but typically it's 9 p.m. at the latest.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, you can ask anyone else who would like to speak on behalf of this matter to approach the podium, please.
On behalf?
No, just anybody who wants to speak on this matter.
Yes, good evening. I'm Jerry Parker, and I'm an attorney for McCarthy Builders, the adjacent property owner. With me this evening is Brian McCarthy and Mac McCarthy and Dennis Cash, who is an operator of the project next door. I think it's kind of funny that we have this applicant up here now withdrawing his request on which there's been a positive recommendation for approval. What's interesting is you have a notice of a violation, no attempt to address why was that violation committed, and what would be the reason for you to excuse this property owner from the violation, which had existed for months, that allowed paintballs to hit not only homes, but people next door. So instead of doing that, we get an attempt to go around the conditions that you imposed with no justification why the violation, first of all, occurred, and why it occurred and lasted so long. It really occurred and lasted so long because this property owner really, quite frankly, didn't give a damn until people started complaining. I personally was involved for 3 to 4 months asking your zoning administrator, when are you going to send a notice to this property owner? People are getting hit. And by the way, if that fence is supposed to be up right now, I was there 20 minutes ago. It's not anywhere up to where it's supposed to be. So the question becomes, I think the issue in front of you is, what are you going to do about the violation? Are you going to revoke the conditional use permit? Because from our standpoint, that's what you should do. I know if it was one of my clients and I asked for a conditional use permit and there was a condition out there that wasn't met after notice with no response to why that condition wasn't met, you'd have a problem with my client. Not revoking the permit would be something that I think you should not do. You should revoke the permit. Otherwise, why impose conditions on these things? Just let people do away with them or ignore them to the detriment of other people next door. You obviously impose this condition so this wouldn't happen. So it happens and it goes on for months because the property owner doesn't want to address it. And as far as knowing about this, my client contacted him back in August. This all could have been avoided. But no, the property owner didn't want to take it on its own initiative to protect these people and do what he was supposed to do. And that's why we're here. And now we get a request to withdraw, putting something over the top of it. It's absurd. That's all I have to say, and I think there's some neighbors here unless they'd like to add something to it, but I know their homes are getting hit, their roofs are getting hit. They paid very good money for these homes, they love their homes, and they're getting bombarded with pellets. Not a great situation. And not one I think you want to allow to continue any longer. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on behalf of this matter? If you would, need you to come up to the podium, please. Yeah. Is the fence up or is it not up? Hang on, sir, 1 second. That's okay. I guess I am going to ask the representative, is the fence up or is it not up? For him to...
I can,
Sure.
It's designed as a retractable net.
Yeah, no, we can't do it this way, folks, one at a time. Daryl.
when I went out there this morning to take the pictures, they raised the net for me. They're not going to have it up 24/7. They have it up when the paintball courts are in use, and then they're retracted to protect them from the weather when they're not in use. So when I went out there, they purposely raised them for me. So you can kind of see in that one, there's a gentleman down here in the bottom left. I don't know if you can see in the picture, but he's raising the screening.
You're right. I mean, that's what it says.
That was supposed to be up all the time in our
Well, it just is within the prescribed areas. That's what even Tim's saying. I mean, as long as when they are actually doing the activity itself. Okay, would you please keep it down, folks? Can I ask you to state your name, please?
My name is Pat Wesley. I live on Quarryside Drive. I've lived there about a month. This is the street right behind the paintball place. That net is not up there, and it rarely is. I don't think I've ever seen it up. Last Saturday, which was 2 days ago, I had 5 paintballs splatter on my driveway. My daughter's car did not get hit. But believe me, I don't want to be sued for somebody's damage to my kid's car. And plus getting all over my house. It's like a nightmare. I found them all over the ground. I can speak for my neighbors who are here. It's not good. They're not doing what they say they're doing.
This is still happening?
And I hear that thing going to 11:30 at night.
Okay.
I hear them yelling and screaming, which that part doesn't bother me. It's the paintballs. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir?
Yes, hi, good afternoon. My name is Alan Evasius, and I live directly on the street behind the paintball facility, the first one on Quarryside Drive. And there's a couple things. Someone was indicating that they're shooting horizontal. That's not the fact. The shacks, as I call them, some of them are 15 feet high, and there are shooters at the top of those being shot at. Paintballs are coming out. I can collect anywhere from 15 to 20 a day on my street as I walk down it. The noise, someone said 9 o'clock. After 10 on Sunday nights, when I'm on a patio trying to drink some wine, there's nothing but paintballs, shooting, yelling, and whistles. It goes on all the time. Now, I've been there 3 years. I'm the first one in. That used to be indoors. It was fine indoors. I'd hear music. They'd come out, wash off the balloons they were shooting or hiding around, and it was fine. But now they brought it out. It's totally wrong. Now, if I understand correctly, you've had 7 years to comply. If you had a teenager, you didn't clean his room for 7 years, what would you do? You'd kick him out. You wouldn't give him a new room. I think it's enough. Thank you.
Did you sign in, sir?
I will.
Thank you.
There you go.
I don't know if the guy from the paintball place wanted to say anything. Need a pen? Oh, there's no pen?
Thank you.
Is that working? And I'm just going to bring a pen for the sign-up sheet. Yes, would you like to speak?
I am Brian McCarthy with McCarthy Builders, and we purchased this development some time ago, 3-4 years ago, and that fence has never been installed. It's never been at the required height. They've been in violation from day one. They've never done a thing. And it's taken, to this point to actually get some type of movement and action, and then they try to erect some kind of crazy contraption. They just don't want to comply. And you can see what the problem it's causing, the neighbors and the development, and it's a serious problem. and they just don't want to comply. They haven't complied. The fence was never up. They said it was up. It came down. It was never up. It was never up to the required height that the conditional use permit stated that they do. So,
Now, when you purchased it, they were in existence, they were operating.
correct.
So it was a concern from day one. Had that, I mean, I'm just curious, was there any contact with them or us regarding if it's been going on that long?
Well, there were trees there at the time.
Okay.
There was an encroachment on our property, and we since took those trees down, and they kind of were expanded into our property. But if it was done properly, we would never have a problem, but it was never done properly since the conditional use permit was originally given.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions for? No? All right. Is there anyone else to speak on behalf of this matter, one way or the other?
I guess I would like to speak again if that's...
Sure. I just want to see, is there anyone else before we go back? Okay. Go ahead.
We can provide, we can't do it right now, but we can certainly provide evidence that the net has been up in the past. It was ripped to shreds by wind and everything, so yes, it has been up. It has been back down. We're talking about an M3 heavy industrial in Sylvania Township against a city of Sylvania residential. So there's an inherent issue, I think, anyway, that I'm not aware of any nuisance, noise, hours of operation restrictions on our conditional use permit. The conditional use permit required 19 to 21 feet. It went up, it was torn down. There has been a delay in getting it fixed. We've expended great sums, and again, we can provide evidence of that, trying to find the best solution possible. We are now back at the requirement of the township with better products, we hope, better poles, better netting. So we are currently in compliance with the netting at 20 feet.
One question,
Sure.
is there any reason why a permanent, not a net going up and down and people having to police whether it's up or not up, why a permanent fence of the required height wouldn't be put in?
The reason that it's retractable right now, and I was just asking my client that, was simply because of the issue we had last time with the wind. So if there were no paintball operations going on, trying to reduce any opportunity for damage to the net and to the posts, we are seeking bids to have additional posts put in, which would picture a tennis court with your typical chain link fencing around it at 10 or 12 feet, whatever it is. Posts are ever so many feet. We're looking at quotes to put in additional posts to better hold the netting, to reduce hopefully damage from the wind. Not a requirement of our conditional use permit, but we're looking at doing that. We can go right now with putting the net up full 24/7 at the 20 feet with the posting we have. Just, again, the only reason we made it retractable was during hours of non-operation to reduce any chance of wind, rain damage to our equipment.
Sure.
Are you still running your operation inside the buildings that are there?
They have several different things going on. There is no paintball inside the buildings. Inside the building is arcade, laser tag, other operations. All the paintball has been moved outside.
You originally were doing the paintball in the buildings,
That's correct. We had paintball fields inside the building as well, yes.
and now you're outside, now you're causing problems for neighbors out there.
Well, I'm certainly not going to agree to that statement. No, I don't know that we are or not causing problems for neighbors out there. I do know that our paintball facilities were moved outside in conjunction with a conditional special use permit issued by this township. And I'm saying that we are now in compliance with that.
Day one, we were outside and inside.
Yeah, I think it was.
And I'm being told there were paintball operations outside from the beginning. That we predate the development, which is in the city versus the township. We predate that development, and our outdoor paintball activities also predate
That's true. That's
the development.
I think that's correct. That's part of the reason we asked for the high fencing. Mr. Hayes?
So if I'm listening to this correctly, your client had a conditional use. He started out with a conditional use, he put the fence up, the fence blew down, and for a whole year hasn't done anything with it. So you expect us, or myself, to feel that this can go on with not being taken care of. You were written up in a violation and you didn't take care of this. You've come in here with all kinds of different things. I was in business myself for a long time. I don't think that's a good business practice. That's my personal statement. Thank you.
Unless there's any other comments, or I think our group we're going to adjourn briefly and...
I do have one question for
sure,
Daryl. Daryl, so has there been any violations written up for this property in the past 36 months?
No, just this one.
No, sorry.
No, that's fine.
But it was number 7. No, we didn't.
I guess that's, I mean, if you want to ask that question. Okay, so we're going to adjourn briefly, confer, then we'll come out and vote on this matter and give you our decision. Be back.
Thank you.
The rest of you hold tight. If somebody needs, there's one seat there, but we'll be back.
You want to come back to witness? Want me back?
Okay, thank you. It's not getting any earlier. Appreciate your patience, and we're going to try to keep this moving along now. So, one thing I want to say, obviously there was something submitted, a very specific request to alter the special use permit that was granted. And then there's also been some discussion about revoking the special use permit. Per our code, we don't have the authority to do that, even if we wanted to. So you won't be seeing us take any action on revoking that special use permit. We obviously have all heard there's a violation, and that is enforceable through a court action, as Township's legal counsel can also tell you. So if this is pulled, this isn't a license to get around to doing this when you need to do it. We're making a strong recommendation that a permanent type of fence get put back up to the height that was specified in the conditional use permit, between 19 and 21 feet. You've got a chain link down there now. If you can come up with something that's permanent, that's a better recommendation, but we're recommending a permanent fence like the chain link, along with a mesh netting to catch, because those balls, I think you have the ability to possibly get through just chain link, as opposed to, a drawbridge where it goes up and down, and people have to police it and wondering if it's going up. It was originally permanent. It lasted 7 years. That's pretty good. And I think, you get something back up, or again, that's permanent, so the neighbors have some peace of mind, and the safety of not being pelleted without proper gear. And that's something we'd recommend be done within 30 days of this hearing date. I think that's what we're thinking about. Anybody else want to add anything to that? Okay. So at this point, I think we still do have to vote on what's been put before us. I believe the request to alter the use permit. So as submitted, is there a motion for that?
I thought that was that not what?
Well, I think we're also going to take formal action on what was requested. I think we need to vote on that. I mean, I know they said they withdraw it.
Okay, I'll make a motion. The amendment requests a condition of a conditional use permit to alter the required height of the screen for the property located at 5340 Centennial Road, parcel number 78-12415.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Mr. Hayes?
No.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin?
Yes.
Mr. Schlosser?
You need to clarify the...
Yeah, I'm sorry. If the case, let me do this for my board. You're voting on the request to amend the conditional use permit. So if you're voting yes, you're voting with what they requested, even though they wanted to pull it. So I just want to make sure if you understand that. Okay. You both understand
I
it?
think I'm going to change my vote.
Yeah, no, I wanted to make sure, because I threw this guy at you. All right.
All right, can we just do a roll call?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Baldwin?
No.
Mr. Schlosser?
No.
Mr. Halpern?
No.
Mr. Miller?
No.
Mr. Hayes?
No.
Sorry about that, guys. Okay.
That's a no as well.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, folks. You got the left one. Okay. We're going to move on, folks.
Do they have to agree to that? Do they have to agree to that?
No, if you do. Oh, you want me to ask them on the record?
Yeah.
Can we ask the parties, gentlemen, excuse me, one thing. I will ask you to come back for 1 second. Obviously, we've voted down your request, which you were agreeing to withdraw. Just so we all know, in terms of, are you agreeing to what our recommendation is?
My understanding is within 30 days, get a permanent fencing above, the chain link, by the way, when I say chain link, it's already covered by netting. So the chain link is the original tennis court fence at 12 feet covered by netting. We're going to go up to the 19 to 21 feet with a permanent fencing that's netting above that. Posts are already in place. Right now it's retractable. We're going to leave it up permanently within 30 days.
You're not going to put anything behind the netting. That's not what we said.
No, we're looking for a permanent fencing along with netting to catch it.
So you want fencing
Yes.
up to 20 feet.
Yeah.
Fencing and netting.
Yeah, and the type of, yes, and the type of material, you know, it just needs to be a permanent, firm, yes, type of fencing. That's what our recommendation is. So we're asking if you agree to it. If not,
Well, and I guess I just want to clarify, we're looking for something permanent to stop the paintballs. I mean, the chain link up to 20 feet doesn't do anything, because the chain link isn't what stops the paintballs. It's the netting that stops
Right.
the paintballs. We're using the chain link structure as the foundation for the extension of the netting, which is what stops the paintballs.
But the problem is you're relying on your process to bring that net up whenever they're doing it.
No.
It's obviously a faulty process. We have testimony that people say that the netting is not up all the time.
Right,
So-
and I took your order or strong recommendation to be it has to be up all the time. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's what we're going to now. We're going to a structure where the net is, it's not going to be retractable. The netting is going to be up 24/7 within 30 days.
That is not correct.
Okay, so then that's what we need to clarify.
What the chairman said was that you would put either chain link fence behind it or another process that would make it more stable than just the netting.
Up to the 20, up to the 19 to 20
Right.
foot level. And I guess how are we going to get to that resolution? For example, we're taking quotes on putting, as I was explaining, more posts in, which will give it the stability from the wind being able to flap whatever those sections are, 10-foot sections, and splitting them in half.
Not to be rude, but that's not our problem. We're giving you 30 days to do it. You're in violation right now. The next stop is court. Do you realize that?
Yes.
Okay. So we're giving you a way to make that permanent so the residents behind there will feel assured. I can't do that. He's got to do it. You want to talk?
Can I add something? The reason we don't want to do that is every time we put...
hang on, if you're going to, yeah, because we have not spoken before. Sorry, folks. Give us your name, please.
I'm Jason Swearinger with World Bank Games. Our concern with that is every time we put something up there rigid like that, it damages the net. So what it does, it opens up holes in the net. So our concern is that over time, wind blowing against the netting across the front of a chain link is going to actually damage the netting over a short period of time. We're actually, for it to be more of a permanent solution, we can work in a framework about the outside, but the best solution there would be to have just the net itself secured permanently up there without the chain link, because that's going to actually open holes in the netting itself. The netting is a nylon netting. And it's specifically designed for paintball. It's quarter-inch by quarter-inch openings in the netting. But our concern is with doing that is rubbing back and forth along that fence is it'll damage the net and tear holes in the net.
I mean, I guess I would say I'm confident with a bit of research you could find something that would be more permanent beyond just the netting. It was there and it lasted 7 years. That's a pretty good run.
And that was just the top part. The bottom part didn't fall down, did it?
No, the bottom part did not fall down. Just
Was
from
there
the
big holes in the bottom part?
Pardon me?
I didn't see any big holes in the bottom part.
It's been replaced.
That's our deal.
Anybody else want to add anything else? So I guess that's our recommendation. If you like to agree to it on the record, this way they'll be holding off for 30 days while you get that done. If that's not agreeable, then obviously the intention would be to enforce the violation.
I'm sorry?
Yes. I mean, you're going to take
Well,
our...
I know that, I agree that's, when you say recommendation, that is your finding.
Yeah, that is our finding on that issue, just in terms of trying to give you, defer some time on them taking an action on the violation. They'll defer it for 30 days if that's what you agree to. You don't have to. I mean, if you don't want to, then they're going to probably move forward on the violation.
Well, that's
Yeah, which you can do. So you don't have to give us an answer if you don't want. Right. Okay, folks? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now I think we've exhausted. Anyone else have an idea on the fencing? I think we're good. Okay, now we're going to move on.
Now you proceed with the right? Okay.
Now, I do want to say, let's give anyone who wants to leave. Really, you don't want to stay?
You got something to say?
Folks, there's a lot of people here, and obviously, people deserve to be heard. It's a sensitive matter. I'd like everyone to please be respectful when other people are talking. We don't need sneering or comments. Let's keep this friendly. In addition, let's really try to keep it brief and relevant, and quite frankly, we don't need everybody to come up to repeat what everyone else is saying. If you have something new that hasn't been said, certainly, you have the right to speak, but, we do want to keep this reasonable, and if it's getting out of hand, I probably will have to intervene and ask us to move on. So, with that matter said, the next new business item, conditional use request to conduct a semi-public use and non-commercial recreational facility on a property zoned A3 agriculture for the property located at 3608 Per Road. Staff report, please.
Yes. The subject property consists of a 40-acre lot fronting onto Her Road and is currently zoned A3 agriculture. The current Sylvania Township Land Use Plan 2007 update designates this area as rural residential. In 2005, a request was submitted to change the zoning from A3 agriculture to PUD, Planned Unit Development, in order to construct a 112-lot residential subdivision to be called Clearwater Lakes. The Lucas County Plan Commission unanimously recommended approval of the zone change. The Sylvania Township Zoning Commission unanimously recommended denial of the zone change, primarily because the request was inconsistent with the land use plan in place at that time, which designated the area as office/light industrial uses. The zone change request was withdrawn by the applicant and never voted on by the Sylvania Township Board of Trustees. The applicant now wishes to sell the property in order for a mosque, school, community center, and recreational facilities to be developed on a campus-style setting. Some portion of the parcel would be set aside for future development. These uses fall within the conditional use classification under A3 zoning in the Sylvania Township zoning resolution. Actually, these uses are conditional uses in all A and R zone districts in the township. C2 General Commercial is the only zone district permitting a semi-public use by right, meaning that a semi-public use will almost always require a conditional use approval to operate within Sylvania Township. Therefore, the applicant is requesting a conditional use permit for a semi-public use and a non-commercial recreational facility on this property. The applicant has also submitted a conceptual plan for the site. Should this request be approved by the BZA, the proposed project would be required to go through project plan review. Full-scale, detailed engineered plans would be required to be submitted, along with the PPR application at that time. These plans would be sent out to all of the relevant agencies such as Lucas County Plan Commission, Lucas County Engineers Office, Lucas County Sanitary Engineers, Sylvania Township Fire Department, etc. These agencies would review the plans and submit comments and requirements. All the requirements would have to be met before the plans could be signed off and the applicant applies for the necessary permits. Sylvania Township zoning staff finds the request to be compatible with the 2007 land use plan and the campus setting compatible with the neighboring area. Staff recommends approval with conditions of the requested conditional use for a semi-public use and non-commercial recreational use in an A3 zone district. In addition to any and all requirements brought up through the project plan review process, staff recommends the following conditions of approval to the BZA. 1. Construction of public access road from the northeast of the subject property to Sylvania Avenue, allowing ingress and egress. 2. A minimum 100-foot setback from the center line of the right-of-way of Her Road for all buildings and structures constructed on the property. 3. Within the 100-foot front setback, the applicant installs screening along the front of the parcel to shield the lights and sounds of the subject property from the residential uses across Her Road. This screening shall include landscaping with coniferous trees a minimum of 4 feet in height and fencing a maximum of 6 feet in height. And 4, a minimum 60-foot setback from the rear property line and a minimum 20-foot setback from side property lines for all buildings and structures constructed on the property.
Okay. Any questions yet from the board? we also had some people submit some things that I think, I just want to make sure all the board members received, some folks that couldn't be here today, just want to make sure you had a chance to, everybody gets them, John King and, okay, just want to make sure everybody had a chance to get that. All right, at this point, we would ask if there's anybody here that would like to speak on this matter, please come. I'll do this again, orderly, one at a time.
I'm Zainab Khalil on behalf of the Toledo Muslim Community Center.
We'll ask you to sign in when you have a chance. Thank you.
To the Sylvania Township Board of Zoning Appeals and to our esteemed community members gathered here tonight, good afternoon. And I thank you for this opportunity to dialogue. My name is Zainab Khalil. I am currently a graduate student at Yale University, where I am studying public policy. I am a product of the greater Toledo community, for which I have proudly called my home for the past 15 years. Today, I hope to speak a bit personally with you about what this project would mean for me and for my community. I have gotten to where I am today largely because of the opportunities that this city has provided me. And I mean to say both its public sphere as well as its civil society sphere. As someone who's engaged in public policy, I've come to learn that nowadays, the line between public and private services is much more fluid. Civil society, what I mean by that is nonprofit organizations, community centers, places of worship, help cities create much more holistic, diverse, and complete communities. Cities depend on such organizations to use their local knowledge and to use their skill set to fill in gaps for services. Thus, empowering civil society organizations means empowering our city and our public. Which is why I am very excited about the proposed plan to expand the Toledo Muslim Community Center. TMCC is a vibrant nonprofit organization that has served hundreds of Sylvania residents since 2009. The proposed renovated center is a long-term project that will not be realized for another 10 to 15 years. We have experts and engineers who are making sure that there will be no disruptions to the local community. The center will include a recreational facility for public use, semi-public use, a sanctuary for worship, a hall for multi-faith engagements, youth programming, counseling services, an ESL institute, citizenship classes, a full-time all-girls Muslim parochial school, and a senior citizens day center. To speak personally, and just to be very honest with you all, I grew up with the Toledo Muslim Community Center. I was very active in my own high school. I went to Maumee Valley Country Days, and I was involved with I was my senior class president. I was an editor for the school newspaper. I was on the soccer team, even though we never won any games. I was still very involved with my school. But there were things that were missing that I turned to the TMCC for, because it was only that organization that could fill in that missing thing. For example, I turned to TMCC for mentorship. It was an affirming safe space where I could be myself as someone who frequently encountered stereotypes and misunderstandings. This was the only place that I could find other older American Muslim women who understood my lived experiences and who could advise me personally and professionally. I eventually became one of those mentors and continued to mentor young men and women in our community. I also turned to the TMCC for community service and activism. Using TMCC as a platform to mobilize others, we created robust youth programming that organized park cleanups, and we also volunteered at the Ronald McDonald House, as well as the Sparrow's Nest homeless shelter for women. Additionally, I turned to the TMCC to participate in multicultural and multi-faith engagement. This is something that is significantly needed in a town as diverse as Sylvania. And if you just look around, you will realize that. An expanded community center will create even more avenues for people of different races, faiths, socioeconomic statuses, and gender expressions to come and build together. As you can see, I, like many of my fellow community members sitting here today, benefit both from what our great city has to offer, but we're also empowered when we find smaller niche organizations that pave the way for that larger civic engagement. The TMCC fills an important niche by responding to the specific needs of some 7,000 Muslims in the greater Toledo area, while also creating more services and opportunities for all Sylvania residents. Now let me say the TMCC that I view today is much different than the one that I grew up with, even though it's only been a few years. Today the space is simply way overcrowded, and it's easy to see that our community has grown. Therefore, we need adequate institutions to respond to this fact. And growing the TMCC shouldn't be viewed as somehow competing or taking away from the Sylvania community. In fact, this proposal stands to be just the opposite. This proposal stands to contribute significantly to our community. As a community, we should always be asking ourselves, do we have adequate services and resources for youth initiatives, for recreation, for ESL, for foreign language programs, for health clinics, for mental health counseling, for addiction intervention programs? We need to be asking this question in the context of serving all Sylvania members, but especially for minority and disadvantaged community members who, we have to understand, often lack access to such resources and institutions. And I know some will say that this proposal is not really needed because Sylvania already has its parks and centers and schools. But as I just mentioned, none of these specifically cater to the particular needs of Muslim community members. For example, there is no senior citizen center that will provide halal meals to a senior citizen while serving her using socio-cultural effective strategies that are needed for her comfort and well-being. And as excellent as some schools here are, that is no doubt, I know that personally I've never had my religious holidays recognized as I grew up, and I always had to make these hard decisions whether should I go to school and have to make up that exam, or should I stay home and recognize a special day with my family. As you can see, there are specific needs that this proposed project would fulfill. But beyond that, this proposal would benefit the entire Sylvania community. We know that a basic economic system in the U.S. American economic system is that more is good. It is always better to give citizens more options, to give them the freedom to choose among many opportunities. Thus, investing in more excellent education, in more robust youth programs, and in more healthy community centers can never hurt our community. It can only make us more active, safe, and whole. Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions for her at this point?
Good evening. My name is Ken Marciniak. I'm a commercial real estate broker with Signature Associates, and I was asked to assist the TMCC with a site acquisition. That process for me started in June. They had been searching with other brokers prior to that time and weren't getting what they needed. We looked at approximately 7 different properties, all in Sylvania or Sylvania Township. For one reason or another, they were all turned down except for this one. I'm a Sylvania native. I've lived here for 35 years, so I know the corner of Central and Her Road. I know that it's a water problem, and I stressed that to the committee that worked with me to acquire the site. And I was so concerned because my integrity is such that I would never sell somebody something without disclosing everything to them. So I waited until a pretty healthy rainstorm during the summer, and the day after, we went to the property, and I had very specific instructions from the landowner's realtor not to drive vehicles on there because there had been a previous applicant or purchaser who turned down the site after driving his soil boring equipment out into the farmer's field. So we looked at this site, we walked as much as we could out to the crops, didn't want to go interfere with the crops, so when we left this site, we then went to the 10-acre site that's available on Central Avenue, just east of her road. We couldn't walk 50 yards into the property because the water was over our ankles on the Central Avenue site. So I know there's a water issue. So along with the water issue, I again stress to them, the property owner to the northeast corner of this property, which is the quarry. And they paid $4 million for that site in 1992. And so I stress to this committee that there's stone, there's rock, there's a lot of rock, there's a lot of stone. This could affect your buildings if you want to put a basement in. And I'm not a geologist, an engineer, but my common sense thought is the rock table is so high out there, that's why we have a water problem. The rock table is so high, so there's nowhere for the water to go. So we get under contract, and during that time, the timeline changes, but I contacted Lucas County engineers and want to know what's going on. There is a letter that's been submitted from Bob Newberg at the Lucas County Engineers Office, who has assured me, or I asked him to put it in writing, that within 2 years, the Lucas County Engineers will start and complete a project to clear 10 Mile Creek. And they think that's the problem with the site, is that it's just so overgrown and loaded with leaves or what have you, that it's just not flowing adequately. He's indicated that the Corps of Army Engineers will come out and reassess the site and all the properties in that corridor after this time, and those properties will be removed from the 100-year floodplain after that work is completed. He went on to then stress to me that if we started construction today, we would have to haul in a minimum of 3 feet of fill to build buildings on, and the fill would have to extend a minimum of 10 feet beyond the building line. So if we had a 100 by 100 building, we'd need a site that's 120 by 120. Not really realizing what that was, I went out to the corner of Central and I think it's Rudd or Rood Road, and there is a 45,000 square foot church building at that intersection, and you can see as you approach, they not only raised the pad site for their building, but they also raised the entire site. The entire 12 acres, I think it is raised to 4 feet. That's an unbelievable cost, but they got all of their fill out of the borrow pond that they put behind the property. So after discussing that, I checked on utilities. And this organization is aware that they have to pay $65,000 tap fee to tap the water, pay cash to tap, and they'll have to extend the sewer line, which stops at the corner of Hill Road and Resource Boulevard or Resource Park. They'll have to not only extend it to service their needs, but they have to extend that all the way across the entire 1,300 feet of frontage. So in doing so, they will install taps for all the homeowners on the west side of Hill Road. So if anybody has an old septic system or is in need, they'll be able to pay cash to tap a sanitary sewer line that will be installed. And we have nothing to do with what the cost will be. That's done by the Lucas County Engineers Office, and that's what they've told me. But that's a benefit to the neighbors going forward. I recommended to them hiring someone like Manikin Smith or that type of company, because we still need to find out what's subsurface. If the soil is too bad, and then they have to enlarge footers, to have engineered footers to build the buildings. So envision, if you will, the mosque out in Perrysburg, it's a huge building, so you'd have to have the proper kind of foundation. They want a basement, so now on the other hand, if the rock table is so high, getting a basement into that rock table is going to be another problem.
Can I ask, just so I understand, I've heard water, rocks, and no utilities. Are you here for the applicant? Go ahead, sorry.
Like I said, I don't want,
I understand.
you know, so I made sure they were aware, and so we wouldn't hire a mannequin smith or the likes until we got past this step, because you guys know, you know, that study that they're going to do, they're going to go out and do borings, and they're going to do an environmental, and then we're going to come up with a site, a full-blown, full-fledged site plan. It's not cheap, and so we didn't want to start down that road until we knew we had the conditional use permit to move forward with it. There's something unique about this organization. It was briefly mentioned that it might be 10 years before it will be completed. I think that's wishful thinking, because this organization does not borrow money. They're not like a normal developer or builder who would go out and go to the bank and obtain a loan for $1 million and go do your project. This organization pays cash. So they wanted to get this approval done so they could go to their entire body and indicate to them, okay, we have the conditional use, here's how much money each of you need to contribute. And everything from the sewer lines to the water lines to the acquisition of the property is all done out of cash. So before they start doing anything, they got to raise the money ahead of time. So again, I think it's wishful thinking to think that this entire 30-acre campus will be complete within 10 years. What we do need to know, which I don't know that I've ever asked Daryl about, is once we get the conditional use permit, how long do we have to start, and does the construction of the sewer line accomplish that start time? And, you know, so that we don't, you know, sit on our haunches and wait a year for the sewer by the time they raise the funds. And I was told it's $250,000 to run the sewer line from point A to the end of their property. I think that's as much as I can help you with.
Would you like an answer from Daryl on?
Yeah.
A conditional use, you have 2 years to act upon a conditional use.
Okay. And is the utility line part of that?
I think I'll yield to legal counsel on that one.
Okay. Because that really affects us. And we haven't had a chance to really go over everything that was in the staff recommendation, but I guess I do have an issue with the proposed additional access along the northeast corner heading north to Sylvania Avenue. That access and easement was provided for the developer of the industrial park, and he didn't do it. So now, aside from all these other costs for utilities, we're being asked to pay for a road that's probably, I didn't check, but I guess it's got to be 1,500 feet long. I think that's a little bit much for one organization. I mean, we would cooperate, and I would say I can vouch that we will participate in the cost, but I don't think that's fair to ask this organization to cover the cost of that full road or driveway or whatever you're going to call it.
Is this the second service road he's referring to for fire access, or?
Along the rear of Sylvania Resource, yes. It's a 1/4 mile long, and as far as the expense of it, if that wasn't put in, and you're probably going to have to do a traffic study. Lucas County engineer is probably going to require a traffic study along her road that the applicant will have to pay for. And then if that traffic study indicates modifications to her road that would be necessary, such as widening or traffic signals or turn lanes, deacceleration lanes, whatever, the applicant would be responsible for paying for those. So I don't know in the big picture which might be
Sure.
cheaper.
And I didn't understand that as part of what I read in your, but yeah, we understand that. And we've talked, and we invited every property owner who was within 200 feet of this property, the same people that got notice of this meeting, we invited them to a dinner, or luncheon rather, at the Grape Leaf Restaurant 2 Sundays ago to introduce ourselves and to go over our plan and project and answer any questions and concerns. And it was brought to light that the biggest concern was water, and understandably, completely, we're not going to start construction within 2 years. We're going to put the sewer lines in, but we're not going to start construction before that period of time, because if we have to put 3 feet of fill, 3 to 4 feet of fill in for each one of these buildings, and that would not make sense, so we'd put in more fill to cover more area. If we wait until the Lucas County engineers are complete with their project, then they've said we're down to probably about 1 foot of fill. So a big cost difference to wait the 2 years. But again, we'll do something to make sure we stay in compliance with the requirement moving forward. If the sewer line installation doesn't cover us, we'll figure out some way of making sure we build something out there. That's all I have.
Any questions for Mr. Marciniak at this point? Okay. Anyone else to speak on behalf of this matter? Yes.
My name's Chris Hamady. I'm a resident of 8941 Sylvania Avenue, and I appreciate you giving me the time to speak today. Did everyone receive the photos and the research that I've done on floodplains? And could we put the photos up on the projector? That would be very advantageous for everyone to see the level of flooding that is going on out there. Is that possible?
Are these the photos? This must have been part of...
Yes, the document that I sent you contained the photos that I'm speaking of.
I don't think I got any documents from him.
Can I forward it to you real quick?
Yeah, I don't know if I can bring that up on here. I never received that, so I...
Mr. Miller, if you could maybe email those to him while I just give you some real quick background. This is actually, and I want to make this really clear, this is the 3rd time that I've been in this room speaking about flooding issues in that area of our town. And my wife and I, we moved to Sylvania in 1997, and speaking to the former owners of our home, who are here today, to back up what I have to say, they have told me that the land that I own, 2 acres, has never flooded from 1981 until 1997, until they sold us the property. Since 1997, there has been a number of developments go up to the west of Mitchaw, up around the recreation center area up there. And now since 2008, a number of developments have taken place to the west of Mitchaw on the opposite side of Sylvania Avenue, just west of 10 Mile Creek. Now the issue that we come to is that we bought the house in 1997 and all this development took place, and then in 2003, 2004, I have photos of the first flooding that literally put ponds in my backyard and put ponds in the front yard. At that point in time, we didn't think much of it. It was once in 7 years. Since that time, it's occurred numerous times in the spring when we've had the spring thaw and the runoff, and numerous severe storms have created intense flood conditions. Now, back in 2011, I spoke here in August trying to stop a development on the east side of 10 Mile Creek at the end of Mitchaw and Sylvania Avenue, and I was told that 10 Mile Creek had now been cleaned up. People had gone in, removed the debris, and they have cleaned up the creek, and you'll never see a flood like that again. And then in December of that same year, we had what was characterized as the worst flood anyone's ever seen, and those photos that I wish that we could put up clearly show a half a mile of 10 Mile Creek flowing from east to west directly into the land that is not mine.
Somebody else.
Directly, here are mine right here.
Yeah, why don't you just get those to the board?
Yeah, I can't access Outlook from this.
And if anybody, afterwards, keep it down, please. We'll make them available if somebody wants to see them.
The road, Hare Road, was so flooded, they had to close the road. There was literally half a mile of the overflow from 10 Mile Creek moving from west to east across the road into the property in question, and I drove my car down as far as I could without flooding the car. And if you look at the photos, you'll clearly see the water running across the road into that property. The other thing I want to say with respect to the water table out there, we had a basement dug in 2001, and the concrete and excavating company told us that the water table was so high out there that they could only go down 7 feet. And so our basement is a very low ceiling because of the water table. What are we going to do? And if you also look at the document that I've given to you, there's some research there from the United States Geological Survey with respect to the urbanization of landscapes in rural areas and how it leads to increased flooding and increased problems with water that must be addressed at some point. And I spoke in August of 2011, in December of 2011, I've emailed the county. And recently I emailed the county on the last storm that we had on June 27th and said, can someone please put in a storm drain on the west side of my driveway because I have a pond literally 15 to 20 feet from my front door. I'm starting to get concerned that the rain is now going to get into the house. And the gentleman said, oh, it's just a blocked storm sewer. I checked it out. Well, what about the end of Hare Road, a 10-acre corner that was underwater for 2 weeks? It looked like a lake. And so for him to characterize what happened in my land as a blocked storm sewer is very frustrating. And so I'm not coming here tonight for the first time. I'm coming here for the third time to ask that something be done to stop all the development out in that area that is contributing to increased runoff into my neighbors' properties and my own. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. That's it? Okay, do we have somebody else who would like to speak on behalf of this matter? Okay, you step up right after Mr. Hamady.
Thank you for allowing me a few minutes to share my thoughts about the proposed construction of the Toledo Muslim Community Center out on Hare Road. My name is Christina Mockenstern El Sayed. I was born in Mercy Hospital. I grew up in West Toledo and attended Start High School. I graduated from the University of Toledo, and now I live in Sylvania, Ohio, with my husband and 3 children. Growing up in Toledo, I remember the borders of the city being not far past Holland-Sylvania Road. I remember the first time I drove out to my uncle's new house in St. James Woods. It was 1979. The only thing out here then was the Huntington Bank on the corner of McCord and Central Road. The Temple Shomer Immunium, what is now part of the Jewish Community Center and YMCA campus, was built in 1973. The St. Elias Orthodox Church on Haroon Road was built between 1974 and 1979. St. James Woods' first plat was built in 1979. The Hindu Temple of Toledo on King Road was built in 1989. The McCord Road Christian Church expansion was built during 2007. Why am I telling you these dates? Because they illustrate a pattern of growth in our community. These dates reflect the diversity of our growing faith communities in Sylvania. At each stage of growth, there are some challenges. Even though the Jewish temple was built the year after I was born, I'm sure their planning committee was met with concerned neighbors and zoning challenges. Now we drive past there on a daily basis, and I don't think twice about the traffic patterns. When the Orthodox Church was built just a few blocks from Flower Hospital, I'm sure they were met with questions about increased traffic. Now we look forward to their yearly festival so we can eat fresh handmade baklava and enjoy the architecture of the building as we drive past it on our way to the expressway. When the Hindu temple was built on King Road, Kroger wasn't there, the Andersons Market wasn't there, and CVS wasn't there. I'm sure they had questions about increased traffic and the water table and how it would affect the neighboring homeowners. I live in the neighborhood behind the temple. I have never had a problem with water in my basement or the weekly temple traffic. Before they moved the festival to Centennial Terrace, maybe we had some traffic problems then, but not now. I could give many more examples regarding traffic patterns and changes like Paysetter Park or Mayberry Village. Our diverse faith communities are growing and being served by each new development. We participate in interfaith ways by attending festivals, playing sports, learning and enjoying the rich culture that our neighbors share. With the expansion of schools and neighborhoods out past Centennial Road, our growing community would only be enhanced by the new community center. People from all over the nation keep moving to Sylvania because we are a rich, diverse, and welcoming city. This growth is proof that Sylvania continues to be the best place to raise a family. Thank you.
Thank you. Sure.
My name is Kevin Hatter, I'm a former trustee. I've dealt with the problems on Hill Road during the storms. I saw the flooding in the plains. And to Assalamu alaikum to all my Muslim friends here, I would like to explain something to you. There's a piece of property on Central Avenue down the road from the new church they built in Richfield Township. That property is 40 acres too, and it's past the floodplain. It's on the west side of the river. And it's a nice parcel of land. There's been no flooding because I cut the trees down there every year. It's owned by the Greek Orthodox, a HEPA property. That would be, to me, if, you guys want to not spend all this extra money on construction, because the water line's already going down Central Avenue. All the stuff's there with the churches and everything. That would be the proper place to put you because you're not going to have to worry about the traffic, the problems, and it'd be a beautiful place for the community center. I would like to see that land developed there, and I am sure I can get you a price of $400,000 to buy that property. And that would be a nice development. It's past the point of where all the, stone is, and you guys can really build a beautiful community center there because I would love to come out there all the time too.
The only thing is, we do have to...
But I'm saying you guys can still make your decision on the property, but I'm just giving them a suggestion to help them out. My phone number is 419-283-8626. Call me if you want to. Okay.
I'm sure they can find a way to reach you.
I'm done. I just want to let everybody know.
Okay, thank you. Come on, folks. Again, I would like to remind everybody, again, it's not a matter of, I think, honestly, almost everything that's said is pertinent and important, but we really do not need to try to keep it relevant to the site. It's not simply about the merits of community center. I would like, as much as we can on what the application is before us. So that's the one thing that I'm going to ask when you do come to keep that in mind. So anyone else, please, that would like to speak? Or, if you want to come up, just kind of, just kind of wait there. This way you'll have less to travel.
Good evening, Tom Krigi, 9555 Sylvania Avenue, lifelong resident of Sylvania Township, and current member of our
Sign in, we have a chance.
zoning board. As we go forward with these projects, farming out there for a lifelong time, I know a lot of anything west of Centennial, know the area like the back of my hand. Al Hayes has heard me present before to the trustees on flooding issues, and Trustee Crandall and Genuine have both consulted me and even took me down to the county engineer's office and met with Brian Miller on issues out there. For the record, just to be fair to the property owner, we did make contact as Krigi Farms as an interested party, so just so everyone knows that I'm not here trying to oppose this so I can grab it, that's open knowledge. But as we look through the conditional use information, Article 25, conditional use, it'd be application for conditional use 2501, letter E, a site plan at a legible scale for the proposed conditional use. And I guess I'm disappointed in the group. She talks of the great engineers and that they have, and I don't doubt that. But then to bring a drawing this, not even in scale, almost a sketch, it is kind of, for this serious of a project, I think a little embarrassing at this point. I know it costs a lot for an engineered print, but as a zoning member board, this is more what we should be looking at right now, so the neighbors know what we're planning. So I think we got the cart before the horse here a little bit. We have almost an elementary sketch, no elevations, no anything. We have a neighbor here that's an engineer that can speak to grade, slope, topography, and we have none of that information in front of us. So I think before we can grant a conditional use, I think there are those of us in the room, maybe even you guys included, that we need a little more of a scaled plan to see what you're granting the conditional use on, not simply a sketch. With that being said, also there was concern of the large row of arborvitaes along her road, if those would be kept intact for running the sewer, or if they would be taken out as a buffer, because those trees have been there a long time. It's a great asset to the property, and I think some of the neighbors would hate to see those destroyed, even if they would get sewer extension. So those are my comments, and I would just like to see a little more output on their part to see what we're really dealing with here. And when I hear haul in 3 feet of fill, I think you guys know you're allowed to do a cut and fill on properties. For ponds, you're not really supposed to haul dirt in, and 3 feet takes a lot. Sylvania Schools, when they looked at the Mitchell Road site, where the water tower is, abandoned that site north of Timberstone because they needed 3 feet of fill. They knew it wasn't economically feasible. They went on the other side of the road. I would argue they still dug ponds and filled it 3 feet, but they didn't haul anything in. They used material on site. That's a little farther from the rock base. I would question, without core samples, if these guys could get ponds deep enough to get enough fill before they hit rock. Those are my comments. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Tony Castaldi, resident 3811 Her Road, just one lot adjacent to the northernmost part of this parcel. And I think what's interesting is we've heard a lot of talk about the need for the center, and I think the young lady was very well spoken in some of those why they might or might not enhance the community. But I don't think that's the question at hand here. I think the question at hand is a zoning and conditional use, and whether there's traffic and flooding at the Hindu temple on King Road is not at all relevant to this piece of land. And so, building on Mr. Creaky's comments, I called asking for the site plan as well, and I was told, well, because they don't own the property, they don't need to do the site plan, and my feeling was exactly what he said, well, that's sort of backwards. And then in looking through your guidelines in section 2502, it says it makes specific findings of fact directly based on the particular evidence presented to it. The supporting conclusions that such use at the proposed location shall meet, and it lists following requirements, one of which is adequate drainage. Another one which it talks about traffic flow. So the question is, basic elementary sketch, and we have enough fact to rule on this. So it isn't a question, and what's interesting, I get the financial question of drilling. Once again, though, that's not the issue here. If somebody wants to drill ahead of time to get all these facts, absolutely fine. It should be done beforehand. And my final comment, it's a real stretch to say that Lucas County has assured that in the next 2 years, my understanding is that the township has been putting money in for well over 3 or 4 years to the tune of over $4 million to deal with 10 Mile Creek and the flooding. And once again, to say, well, I've been assured in a couple years they're going to deal with this, that couldn't be any further from fact. And so the only thing I ask is if you could just take a look at what is before us. It's not whether this is the right, it's not what goes there. The question is, can anything go there right now with the flooding, and then also with the traffic? I'm sorry, a school that is next to a school, which is next to a school, is a legit concern. So that's all I have.
Thank you.
Can I get a point of clarity?
Hang on one sec, please.
2 months?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Daryl, so actually, that is a good point, the $4 million. So has any of that money, is that just an escrow? Has that been spent? Because I haven't seen any work done yet on that. So do you know? You don't have the answer to that?
No knowledge of that. That'd be the Public Works Department.
Okay.
So, and I do...
That's Sylvania Township?
Right, I'm sorry.
That's part of the township budget though, right? Or escrow?
I assume he's talking about the stormwater utility being traded in county.
That's county.
Okay.
And I apologize. My final comment is, Mr. Marciniak, I assume you didn't drive down that road when most of it was underwater, including at times fire hydrants underwater, which are supposed to protect my family. Already a serious flooding problem. How you're going to build on that does not alleviate. I mean, bringing in fill is just going to flow it down toward the neighbors. So I assume it wasn't during that time when you couldn't even get to that property.
Tom, real quick, I have the stormwater utility off the website I'd like to present to you so you can show Don the...
If you want, just bring it up.
Where the money's going.
Yeah, just bring it up. I'm sorry, go ahead, sir.
My name is Mohammed Samir Hafzi. And first, I would like to address the comment that rose applause, and that comment was not complete. Our agent, and I'm going to ask him to describe why we have submitted a sketch, and just a sketch. Please.
Ken Marciniak again. When the whole process started, I called Daryl and asked what the requirements were for the application, and he said we needed a drawing, and so we talked and back and forth, and Daryl said that this would be acceptable, so that's why we submitted it. Now, in Daryl's defense, it was either last week or maybe the end of the week before, he got back to me and said, this doesn't cut it. You need a full-fledged, full-blown site plan. And I said, it's impossible. I mean, we can't get that completed before the meeting. There's just no way. And I don't want to throw Daryl under the bus, but I got to ask for Daryl to verify that I complied with what I was told. This is the first time I've gone through one of these, so I count on Lucas County engineers, I count on Daryl for guidance. That's it.
I hope that address the issue of our professionalism as an organization.
Well, to some extent. No, not your professionalism, no, I'm not questioning that. I think, you know, you were asked to submit something and you were told it was not adequate. I think it would have probably served your best interest if you were advised maybe to wait and reschedule and submit something. I'm just saying on your own behalf for all of you. That's just a comment.
Hi, John King, 4708 Farm Creek Lane. Also a current zoning member, serving in my second year of the term. So one thing I would like to make a correction on the email that I sent to you all with some of my concerns was, I think I've been around long enough to where sometimes you forget what you did 10 years ago. The original zoning, the master land use plan that we had did have this property for future use as light industrial. That was changed now to rural residential. That doesn't necessarily change my concern. The one thing that I see is we look around and we have rooms full of people like this, just like you do. Of course, I think you guys have packed the house. But one of the concerns we have, and we're looking at zoning and setting the stage for the future growth of our community, is taking all things into consideration, the residential, the commercial, the industrial. And as I look at the zoning map, the only concern I have here, and all the other ones are legitimate with traffic and flooding, and I think 10 Mile Creek's a huge issue. However, what I look at is when you look at Resource Park, we've got that light industrial park there. Some great businesses that bring jobs and a tax base to this community. Schools and churches, although I'm not against schools and churches, they're not bringing a significant tax base. A new business would. So I know that's right now rural residential, but I think as we look forward as zoning and BZA members, looking over the next 10, 15, 20 years, we have to take these things into consideration. To me, as you look at our zoning map, there's only one place left in our entire township that could have a nice resource business park like this with light industrial. So I would just ask you to continue to consider that moving forward for the township.
Maybe the zoning board should think about rezoning. Thank you. Okay. Thanks for everybody being patient. So I can headway here. Do we have somebody else? I believe we have a gentleman there.
Yeah, Corey Burnett, 3731 Her Road. Also a lifelong resident of Sylvania. Graduated from Northview. Lived here my whole life. Lived on Her Road for 11 years. The flooding, the traffic is a major concern. Obviously the two schools, all the subdivisions that are south of Central that cut through the schools for the traffic, so that's our huge concern. And obviously the flooding, I'm not going to repeat it, but it's a major concern. You know, I've been there 11 years. We've seen it 3 to 4 times go across the road from west to east into that property, which would, you know, be coming back to us if that got developed. The main concern, and kind of John stole my thunder there, but is the tax base. I mean, this is a 501(c)(3), and it's tax exempt. That's 40 acres out of our tax revenue forever. Once they get this property, we are not going to get it back. So that's, you know, sports, busing, police, fire, all that money is going to be then put on the residents of Sylvania, in Sylvania Township. Every year, you know, we get levies coming down here, and we're going to take 40 acres out of there, and they say it's going to be a 10 to 15-year plan to develop this. And they also, I think Ken mentioned that this organization doesn't use banks. Well, in 5, 10 years, if they don't raise enough money, you know, are we going to have empty lots? You know, we're going to have partial finished items? You know, that could happen. Economic situations change in the world. Things change, you know. So, I mean, you know, a 10, 15-year projection on your donations is a big concern. And then we have 40 acres sitting there that we can't get tax revenue out of, and it's on the burdens of the taxpayers and the residents of Sylvania. You know, and so it's just, that's a major concern. And that's all I have to say.
I mean, the one clarification, it is zoned properly, so in terms of, generating taxes from a business, it would take a change of zoning, so, that's really
Well, but
falls under the zoning board.
It's paying taxes now. And so I'm just saying, if they got this, there's a lot of questions unanswered with this conditional use. I mean, I think we've heard that from a couple of people, and there's other properties out there. I mean, by turning down this conditional use, you're not saying no to TMCC. You're just saying, no, this location is not right for this campus. You're not saying no to TMCC, you're saying there's other areas you need to look at. The one lady talked about what a benefit it is to the community. 4 miles west, 70 acres are for sale at 295 and Central Avenue. No residents around there, no flooding issue, still Northwest Ohio, huge community, great, just like I think Haddad said, about, off of Central Avenue, 2 major routes, it'd be more beneficial for them. But that being said, that'd be evergreen and wouldn't be our tax problem. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you. See, we have another gentleman. Sure.
Hi, just on the question of being tax exempt, I'm hearing two different things. I'm hearing folks who are saying that property shouldn't be developed at all, and other folks who are saying, no, we'd actually rather have that property be developed into something commercial or industrial so that it'll bring in tax revenue. So really, I'm starting to question why people are bringing in the tax question if initially the point was to say that, no, we shouldn't have anything developed there. We're a 501c3, and we don't apologize for that. That's what civil societies and nonprofits and religious communities are granted. And frankly, to question our right to practice being a 501c3 and to say that this is somehow detrimental in the reason that this center should not be built in its current space is, I think that's very problematic. There were two comments of people who said that...
Hang on, folks, let's not... No, when I start...
You're welcome to come here and talk, but there were two comments of folks who said we'd rather see that place developed for commercial uses, and I think we need to be consistent if we're going to make that sort of argument.
My only point related to that is whatever, whether it's commercial or the community center, whatever, there's a lot to be looked into to be done physically for that site. So, studies may say, it's not buildable or it's cost prohibitive or what have you, and I think that's a huge question mark before all of us right now. So, yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Joe Rowe. I live on her road, right across from the property that's in question here. I just want to make just one statement. I'll make it quick and done. And it was mentioned about the fire hydrants being covered. Flooding has been a terrible issue there. We know that, and whenever you add any kind of construction into the area until 10 Mile Creek is taken care of. 10 Mile Creek has been a promise for years, and someone made the statement there was $4 million. It's a lot more than $4 million sitting there, okay, to be done. It's been promised for years, something to be done. They went in over and they did a $50,000 cleanup. That's a drop in the bucket as to what needed. Did it relieve it? A little. Okay. Now, there is a problem there for water, and that's what I want to address. Whenever you add anything, you're taking away the pervious soil to absorb water. If you look at, there's photographs of the property that's in question here, it looks like a lake. You take the lake away, where's the water going to go? Now, here's the real problem. These are all issues that cause problems for, our property, damaged property, access, but there's a real problem here. It's safety, public safety. When the fire hydrants are closed up, and I spoke here in 2011, and the fire chief was right beside me, and when I mentioned this to him, his whole countenance changed. He was not aware of it, I don't think, and I had the photograph. I wish I had it now. I don't have it right now. I will submit it to you. Fire hydrants being covered. House burns down. I mean, you're talking about public safety. Public safety, and that's a major issue. Something has to be done before we add anything, whatever it is. That has to be taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Bruce Warren, 8901 North Park Lake Circle. I'd just like to take a few minutes to address Article 25, conditional use. It says, and I quote here, "No application will be considered unless the same is fully completed and accompanied by all required information listed on said approved forms. At a minimum, the application shall contain the following information," and I'm not going to read them all. This item I am going to quote, though, has been addressed previously. "A site plan at a legible scale of the proposal for conditional use showing the location of all buildings, parking and loading areas, traffic circulation, open space, landscaping, refuse and service areas, utilities, signs, and yard setbacks." And gentlemen, that sketch that's up there is not a site plan. This is what a site plan consists of. Going on with Article 25, it says that a narrative statement evaluating the effects on adjoining property, the effect of such elements as noise, glare, odor, light, fumes, and vibration on adjoining property, and the discussion of the general compatibility with adjacent and other parcels within the immediate area of the proposed conditional use. General standards for conditional use, Article 2502, that this use will be harmonious with the existing or intended character of the general vicinity, and that such a use will not change the essential character of the same area. It will be served adequately by essential public facilities and services such as highways, streets, police, and fire protection, and adequate drainage, refuse disposal, water and sewer. Gentlemen, another comment on that sketch that's supposed to be a site plan. It does not show any area for a stormwater detention basin. There was a comment earlier about how long this, I think Mr. Marciniak raised that, the expiration of conditional use. A conditional use permit shall be deemed to authorize only one particular conditional use, and said permit shall automatically expire if such conditionally permitted use has not been installed or utilized within a 2-year period.
Right, that's what we said.
The applicant may submit to the Board of Zoning Appeals a request for an extension every 2 years.
Correct.
Gentlemen, there's a lot missing in this application for conditional use. It doesn't come close to meeting the requirements of a conditional use, and therefore it should be rejected. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any other comments that have not already been, we have not heard? Any new topics? Okay. As soon as Mr. Worm's done.
While he's doing that, you've been given documents and evidence directly from witnesses today. And I think sounds like something was emailed to you previously. If you're going to consider that as evidence in making your decision, the applicants have a right to review that evidence and to comment on it.
Okay. I think that's the...
Good evening. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Ahmed Awad, Sylvania resident, born and raised here. A couple just quick comments. One is I'd like an equal opportunity for not just myself but my kids when they grow up, a place to worship and have something conveniently located, not Perrysburg, not something far all the way down on Central Avenue. Something close by. You know, the gentleman said that we had 7 attempts, they all failed. I'm not surprised. This is the only one that was approved, so this is our opportunity to do this. As you can see, we have a lot of resistance here, and if you can look between the lines, you can understand how this means so much to us to have this opportunity even to discuss it tonight. That's one comment. The second comment is, I understand what the young lady was mentioning. We're getting different stories. This all kind of plays a role of, again, trying to get the equality of trying to get an opportunity to build something. As far as the documentation, I can understand it from a legal standpoint. We were told a week away from this meeting that it was not acceptable. There's some blame for that on your end, and all I'm requesting is to take that into consideration as well when making a decision. Not to say that that's not going to happen. If that's a requirement, we can still, I'm sure we'll have to do it to proceed, but all I'm saying is equality throughout the board from A to Z. Thank you.
Listen, we're going to ask to go off record briefly. I'm going to ask the board to confer. We're not telling you you're not going to get a chance to finish here. And then we'd like to come back, and then we'll continue at that point. So we're going to take a moment's break off record. We'll be right back.
That was all.
اللي هو ممكن السعر بتاعهم احنا نسيبهم زي ما هم عاوزين. يعني اللي عاوزينه مش كتير بالظبط كده، بس لازم نظبط انت عارف الجمهور الرسمي بعد كده اللي عاوزينه مش كتير، اللي عاوزينه مش عاوزينه يعني اللي عاوزينه مش كتير، بس عاوز المعلم يقعد مش عارف ده صعب ده صعب. غيرت كلمة
Yeah, please. Hang on. Just waiting until we're ready. Okay. Okay. First of all, again, thanks you everybody for your patience. Obviously, we want to make sure that we give this the adequate attention it deserves. At this point, we have decided, after hearing what we have heard and having some discussion, we are going to entertain a motion on this issue now. And so do I have a motion on the matter that was presented before? As soon as I think I took that in with me. Here it is. So do I have a motion on the conditional use request? As submitted. Anybody want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
And is it as submitted?
I make a motion on the conditional use request to conduct a semi-public use in non-commercial recreational facility on the property zone A3 agricultural for the property located at 3608 Her Road, parcel number 7829194.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. I mean, I'm happy to begin. I think what we have here is, in this, I'll express on behalf of the board and part of our discussion, our concern is, we've heard the comments, there's a lot of validity to a lot of what's said. No matter who would be standing before us right now with this application, what we have is an incomplete application, and well beyond, you know, anything that this board can rule on. It's a bit of a cart before the horse. You obviously know, your representative has indicated that there is substantial amount of pertinent concerns regarding the physical condition of the property. And we've heard absolutely nothing as to how any of those would be addressed for the safety, and that is all part of what a conditional use is approved for. It cannot be to the detriment of the neighbors, the property, and so forth. I think it's pretty indisputable as it sits now, it would be that way. We have made a suggestion that it be considered to be withdrawn, and that those issues that you intend to go after, that you intended to deal with after the BZA, be addressed now, so a complete application can be with the site plan, and the water issues, the drainage issues, those things be addressed, and so this board can then effectively informed make a decision. And the alternative, we've been told that there is not an interest in withdrawing the application, and our alternative is to vote on what's been presented before us, and that's, at this point, what we intend to do. So I do want to make sure everybody understands what's taking place here. Okay? So
in that motion,
go ahead.
There were 4 conditions that were set forth. I just want to make sure for the record that those 4 conditions that Darrell set forth would be included.
Correct.
In the motion.
So the motion, and that's a very good point, the motion that we're voting on was as submitted and with the staff's recommendations. Okay?
Can I have one sentence, please?
Sure. Yes.
I would like to put on the record the following. Why the request was accepted and scheduled for a hearing, while the application is not complete. 2, we perfectly complied with what we have been told to do. And now we are being told that we have been submitted is incomplete. Thank you.
Yeah, I think also for the record, what I'm saying is there are a number of issues beyond if it's complete, there's still a number of issues directly related to the property that you've not addressed. So beyond that issue, what we're saying is, you know, there is not enough information related to the conditions that have an impact that at this point we have not been presented. So this is not just simply what was given to us, whether there's a piece missing on the formal application. It's more of there's quite a bit beyond that that has not been submitted to us. I mean, we basically, we don't have anything to rule on that specific. I mean, we just don't. I mean, you have...
Can I answer that? I'm very brief. My style is very brief.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
As I understand it, we have from the office of the county engineer, and that is, I believe, an official office, that the Lucas County engineer has a stormwater utility project planned for the improvement of the 10-mile creek, which When the improvements are complete, the area should be removed from the 100-year floodplain. According to the letter, construction is planned for 2016-17 with as-built survey conditions submitted to FEMA in 17-18. FEMA approval won't be until 18-19, which is when we will start working on the gym. So, we are aware of the issue of the water. The Office of the County Engineer, I believe, submitted a letter that addressed that issue. That is the flood issue.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to call for the vote.
Okay.
Mr. Hayes?
No.
Mr. Schweitzer?
No. No, excuse me.
Mr. Baldwin?
No.
Mr. Hilbert?
No.
Mr. Miller?
No. Thank you.
Motion,
Yeah, we have a motion, being no other business.
I second it.
Okay. Are adjourned, thank you. So now who's catching this case? I mean, that's,
yeah, I made a motion, he seconded it.
Hey, let me know how much time showing is.
Here we go.
Thanks for all the information. It's very Stop so you should have sent your bills. Or an email. I didn't see it. So I put a note in there, once I should go.
Well, yeah, I think it's the title holders.